Hello, me again. Hopefully you've watched the video above and I didn't bore you to tears too much. This, I suppose, is part two, really. Mainly because I didn't have time and 15 minutes seems to fly by, but when you're having so much fun, there's a race at 7 o'clock where I want to just touch on the two things, but just to recap very quick. In Just That Lord, I tried to highlight a horse that had a valid excuse for why he went so slow later on, in the sense that he did far, far too much through the kind of first three furlongs. And I just wanted to highlight that just because I've been over to check. So 4 to 3 out, he ran in 10.87 seconds, that 1 furlong sectional, which is blistering. As an example, Batash in the King's Stand at Royal Ascot ran 4 furlongs to 3 out in that 5 furlong sprint in 10 seconds, 0.89. Now, Batash ran the first furlong in about 13.77, then the 3 to 2 in another sub 11 second time, and that's why he's a grade one horse, that ability to go very fast and then sustain it. Just That Lord obviously isn't a Batash, but just as an example of what a 10.87 furlong, and if you're at this class and you're this ability of horse, at a class 4 horse, going that quick and then doing the first 3 furlongs or so fast, that's why you're going to tie up. So they got that wrong. There's a valid excuse for that run. Moving forwards, I want a more efficient ride, and for hopefully maybe some less pace pressure, to look at some of the conditions for where he's performed best. But that was an example of a horse, of using sectionals to see if a horse has an excuse other than just simply looking at the form book and the distance beaten and thinking there may have been something physically wrong or he wasn't fit. With that example, he's clearly gone way, way too quick, and we can use that to project moving forwards, whether or not, or use that information moving forwards when analysing his chance in future races. That's the point there. The race I want to look at here is the 7 o'clock, the Claiming Stakes. This again was on the 2nd of July at Wolverhampton. There's a horse called Swiss Pride I want to focus on, and you look at claimers and you think, oh, class 6 claimer, rubbish, but there's a few of them around these days, and you can look at the ratings of the horses, obviously, and they take a slightly different bit of analysis, I suppose, and I don't look at too many claimers, especially when looking from a handicapping and weight carry perspective. But for this particular race, I want to just focus on what kind of happened and what kind of horse we can mark up. What I want to say is, so this is an example, a race example of, I think, a horse going too slow and being in the wrong position, and then finishing like a train. And whereas if he had possibly been a bit closer, a bit earlier, he may well have finished better. And you can see there's kind of upgrade scores here. The fact that quite a few have been upgraded, and there's, if you go back and watch the part one above, these kind of two videos possibly go together, in the sense of understanding what I'm looking for, and I talk through some of the reds and the greens and etc. etc. It could be that there's some questions over this race general, given the amount of red and everything else. But what I wanted to highlight was that here we have two horses, Manton Grange, Lucky Lodge, who were prominent and were kind of up there throughout the race. They kind of went slow early, but he's gone slow early, 3 1/4 lengths off the leader. That's what these kind of in running lines. And he's gone slow, 5 furlong to 4 furlong out. It's a 7 furlong race, kind of 3 lengths off the leader. Then a kind of even fraction, and then he's had an ability to quicken, slow, 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 even, quicken. So that's why he's kind of been upgraded, and maybe moving forwards, this claiming race might be one just to keep an eye on. Most of these haven't run since. Like I said, this was from early July, so you can yeah, 2nd of July. Sorry, I was just remembering the date. Yeah, 7 p.m., 2nd of July, Wolverhampton. So that ability to go slow and then quicken um, is decent, because if they face a race in the future where it's a dawdle and you can race prominently and then you can quicken off that pace, that's something worth noting, especially then when you're analysing a race using pace maps and other things to try and work out what the pace may be and how the race may be won and run and then won. So yeah, that ability to do that and quicken up and put in those fast sectionals and finishing speed percentages to the par for the course is interesting. I'll get the chart up in a moment, which will mean something to those of you who watch the video above. But it's Swiss Pride I want. So Lucky Lodge was also, he was 1.5 lengths off the leader. You know, even then slow, even. Swiss Pride has absolutely flown home. As you can see, that's what the red means, gone faster, much faster than the sectional pars for this particular race and distance and conditions, track and distance. But he started very slow and he's been held up in rear, ridden over 2 furlongs out. So at kind of the start to 5 furlongs and 5 to 4, he's 6.25 lengths off the winner, and he's 6 lengths off the winner there. And at this point here in the race, 4 to 2 out, he's still 5.5 lengths off the winner. And you look at the actual winner, 5.5 lengths off the leader at this point, and you look at the actual winner, 3.25, 3, 2.25. So he's further forward. He's nearer the leader at those points in the race and has an ability to quicken. And here in Swiss Pride, we have a horse which is held up, ridden patiently, far too far off the back, but also has an ability to quicken, mainly probably, well, obviously he's conserved some energy by going slow there, but too slow. And then he's absolutely flown. And if you can see some of these sectional splits, hopefully you can see here. So from 4 to 2 out, so in those 2 furlongs, 4 to 2 out, 24.40. The eventual winner, 24.39. So basically they've run the same time from 4 furlongs to 2 furlongs out, pretty much. From 2 furlong to 1 furlongs, the winners run 11.38. Swiss Pride runs 11.35, so quicker. And then from 1 furlong to the finish line, 11.78, 11.71. So he's actually done that part from 4 furlongs to the finish. He's ran in a quicker time than the eventual winner. His problem was that his starting point for doing that was further back, and because he'd started slowly and been held up, whether deliberately, whether because that's how the horse needs to be ridden, whether because he's got a £5 claim who's decent, but he is inexperienced. He's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to get his fractions wrong. So he has the ability to quicken off what was kind of even to kind of slow fractions through the first bit. The problem is when he started to do so, he was too far back and he did so in the wrong place. Now, if he had started to put in these fractions here, but was upsides Manton Grange when he started to make that effort, I think based on those times, and based on the fact that he ran that time quicker, he'd have won. That's the point. That's the interesting bit about sectionals and how you can analyse that. Now, if the energy he'd used to therefore be upside Manton Grange, then the debate, I suppose, at that point is, would he then have put in this finishing kick? So that's the kind of complexities and the intricacies of this kind of approach, which I find fascinating. But his run undoubtedly can be marked up, because if he'd have possibly had a stronger pace, if you're going to be held up, you want a stronger pace to aim at, which they didn't have really through the first kind of part of this race. As you can see here, these are the race, the sectional kind of percentages. If these had been red, possibly, that might have helped him get home by being held up off a strong pace. But he was held up off a moderate kind of sedate pace for the par before then kind of getting going and doing all his best work late. So moving forward for Swiss Pride, you can see there, he's clearly an all-weather horse. It's only his 4th start for Roger Teal. I thought that was decent enough. Obviously, you can look on a handicapping perspective and look at marks. He was rated 80. Swiss Pride is 73. We had a £5 claim on, so again, you can maybe mark that up from a handicapping perspective even more. Like with Just That Lord, you can go through ideal conditions, possibly 6 furlongs. When he's won, he tracked the leader for Richard Hughes, tracked the leader there. So if he can actually be ridden further forwards, maybe in a sedate pace or a kind of even pace, but have a better starting position, we know he has the ability to flash home and pick up speed off kind of slow even fractions, and that on a different day, on a different kind of running style, a slightly different starting position, maybe, if able to reproduce these final from 4 furlongs out to the line, if able to produce that in slightly better conditions, he'd have probably won this race, and he was beaten 1.5 lengths or so. And you can go back and watch the race if you so want, and you can then kind of see that happening in live play. As this just loads here, just to kind of bring some life to it, so you can watch the race from the start. I'm conscious of the time, so here he's here. Swiss Pride's in third there. Marco, he's drawn wide. That might be one of the reasons he's stuck out on the wing here. If he stays on the wing and pushes up, he's probably not getting home anyway. Maybe it's his draw then, and that's when, looking at the race, you see different things. And he's out on the wing and he's lit up a bit. He wants to settle him, so he's gone, right, well, now I need to get you behind horses. I'm a bit drawn. I was a bit stuck in no man's land. I've got to tuck you in, otherwise I'm definitely not getting home. I can't stay stuck out wide with the whole race, losing ground and keeping him lit up. But you can see here a lot of these horses are pulling, a lot of them pulling around, not pulling, but they're not going that quick, which the sectionals indicate. The eventual winner's here, isn't he? So his starting position is much, much better. And they fly around 3 furlongs to go. And it's from this point, 3 furlongs to the line, where they run a similar time on the sectional split, or faster actually, the eventual third and the winner here. But his starting point is just much further back. Yes, he's conserved energy. But he wouldn't have had to use much energy if he was better drawn to get in a more prominent position. And they've flown, and they're both flying here, and he's flying at a much quicker. And you can see that visually as well, but the sectional times help bring that alive. He's got first run. He was in a much better position off moderate fractions, and he's flown. But actually, you might look at that race and think, oh, it looks all right. The clock tells you so much more for me when watching that race back about the performance of the third. And actually, also the performance of the winner and his ability to quicken. You could see him quickening there, and he's 7. I'm not quite sure if he was claimed or he's gone to a different trainer. He's not exactly over race for his age, but he might be one to watch depending on what happened in him. You wouldn't be shocked if he maybe had a handicap off that particular mark. So I would mark up the winner, and I would mark up Swiss Pride. Put them in your notebooks. Use some of those things I've talked about to try and bring those performances to life, and try and project on a future race how, if things happen differently, a different result might transpire. And that actual Swiss Pride's run there was pretty good. He either needed in that situation needed possibly a better draw. But he either needed a much stronger pace, of which then to make that effort where the leaders would be falling and fading, having done too much, or he needed to make that challenging position from a starting point that was further forward before putting in those turbos. So maybe in the future, maybe he might drop back to 6. And because he's clearly got a turn of foot and speed, and they will bump him out, race him up there, maybe then try and put their handbrake on, and then kick kind of 2 furlongs out or so, using that relative turn of speed that he has. I'm aware that I'm ticking around. I haven't talked about the chart really, and you can see this black line's the par. Both of the first and second have gone far too fast, too slow against the par, and then from this point here they've sped up. and that ability to do that is worth marking up. But like I said, Swiss Pride's position from when he started to speed up, and you can see how he's gone quicker than the eventual winner. His position, did that from a point much further back in the race, which is why he lost. So hopefully, and didn't win. And in a different scenario, maybe he could have done. So hopefully that's useful. I'm ticking around to 15 minutes. Thanks for watching.